and civil society. Civil society is completely, there's a divide and there's a gap, and that gap is not going to meet. What are the ways? And the last thing the questioner wants to hear about is corporate social responsibility. Because everybody's going to say, well, our 1% is going towards dealing with the poor people. The fact is, the world has to face up to where I started off, that inequality and unemployment is a global phenomenon that needs to be addressed. And growth in and of itself at this point in time is not the answer to that problem. Because growth at the moment, there's lots of very interesting pieces being written about ways in which effectively economic growth are not advancing the inequality problem. They're growing the gap between the poor and the wealthy. And South Africa, for example, is a case in point where we've made tremendous strides in the last 20 years. I wrote a report called 2 Decades of Freedom about it. But the fact is the Gini coefficient has grown. And it's grown because the wealthier have got wealthier at a larger pace than the poor have got less poor. It's fantastic that the poor have got less poor. And it's fantastic that the wealthy have got wealthier. But we need to learn to close the gap. And that's where this global phenomenon of unemployment and inequality has to come up with some new tools. And the reality is we don't have the answers.
Thank you, Colin. Got a question over here?
Okay, my name is Angela, and I'm Nigerian. I want to put it to Mr. Mohammed. You talked about privatization being one way to inclusion, but when we look at privatization, especially in Nigeria today, we see that it's the same rich people buying up the companies, and it's not really getting into the hands of the people, of the masses, so to speak. So I guess the question back to the panel is, how do you ensure that a process of privatization goes to the people so that you can broaden this market, like you alluded to, that we still have a very small market, especially looking at Nigeria and other African countries, if we take South Africa out?
I'll make you laugh, because when I went public, that's one thing I wanted to do. So I had 250,000 shareholders. But what I did, I really did minimum per person. Now, today I have 50,000 shareholders. And the reason was that all these small guys, the teachers who invested 10,000 with me, I think after about 3 months, 4 months, they sold it at 20,000. That's good. At least they made 10,000 more in 3 months' time. But that's going to be a global issue. Now, keep in mind that in America, 1.8% of the population, they own 55% of the wealth. So let's also be realistic. I mean, let's not talk too much about inequality. It's a fact of life. I mean, and if you talk about 200-year-old democracy in America, the most democratic country in the world, I'm glad they have 2 political parties out there, they'll be killing each other. They still have that issue. So it's an issue that we'll debate, we'll try to fight, we'll try to put solutions. Some will work, some will not work. But I really think that to answer your question in all honesty is that I think if there's a system of governments that looks after social services, and I like what you said about all the hard and soft infrastructure, we invest in education for that type of people. We have organizations that are responsible towards the society and uplift these people. And there is that new god, Google, because they're going to go into a different world and do business in a crazy way. They'll make it somehow.
We've got a couple of minutes left, so Prime Minister.
I will be short.
NBC.
When we made the privatization in Côte d'Ivoire, there is a share of the capital given to the individuals of the country. Let's say you can decide that you go through the stock exchange and you give, let's say, 20% to the individual, local individuals. So that's one of the way to solve the problem. Thank you.
My intervention to Angela is, the kind of entities that we are privatizing today need souls for them to work. It's not because we just want to privatize, we want them to work. The option that would satisfy you would have been to list them on the stock market, and you have thousands and thousands of people picking up those stocks, and not one person takes responsibility for making sure that they work. The model we have adopted of, getting people who have the deep pockets and those who can blend their own personal investment with attraction of debts from wherever to take control, but we must then ensure that we have a framework in place that forces them or encourages them to list after dealing with those issues. But having done that and having adopted that model, the question then that I think should be asked is, what then do we do with the proceeds of privatization. I think that is something that the government needs to put back into dealing with the issues that encourage or discourage financial inclusion or encourage exclusion. I don't want to use financial in this inclusion sense because it's not financial. You need to find something to bring these people back into the net of people who can sustain themselves. And what you need to do for each person is not too difficult. Just provide the resources and the environment for them to thrive. They are very brilliant. They are very entrepreneurial. We have the best set of entrepreneurial people, but they just can't express themselves because they don't have enough support. So if we can divert the process of privatization into dealing with those issues, it would have, in one way or the other, flowed back into the society.
Thank you so much. And with that, we'll just wrap things up. We spoke about a lot of things today, including integration, actually defining inclusive growth, the role of women, and of course the role of institutions, just to touch on a few things. So I hope this was a vibrant discussion, and please hope we see it on Twitter. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Thank you.
Your Excellency, your English.
He didn't put it on his mouth. Put it on his mouth.
All right. Okay.